Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 243 of CryptoBiography, and it's part 10 of the Isle of Bronze. Hope you're enjoying listening to it. I'm certainly enjoying writing it, and here we go. It had taken until past midday to return to the palace. After the evening meal, Mercili gave Nasramin and Mawaya in private an initial update. We have found 3 homes destroyed, with several more being damaged, though it seems that unless it hit directly, the damage is minor in most cases. There are also 6 barns and other outbuildings destroyed, with at least that many damaged. One of the granaries was damaged, though fortunately not badly. The roof will need some repairs, and the grain inside seems to be unaffected. Callus's guard seems to be the only death, though 10 people have injuries, including 2 with broken bones. I am not assuming we have found all the damage and injuries. I hope we found all the building damage, but it is quite possible that some people may be injured or dead away from their homes. We're both doing physical searches and also asking around to see if they know someone is missing. Is there anything more you'd like me to do on that score? No, you've done well, Nasramin said. Pull together a list of costs to the Crown and also to the people involved. We'll see about helping them and making repairs on the Crown's properties. Was there any damage at all to the mine buildings or the smelter? None? I had a couple of my men check. Excellent. Are the healers done with Callus? Nearly, my king. He looked down at Nasramin's chest, and he could tell Mercili was on the edge of asking how he was feeling. But that would be one step too far. Friends they were, yet they had always maintained a certain distance. Asking how he was feeling when he himself wasn't a healer would be too informal. Still, Nasramin understood all of this and was glad. In less than an hour, the healers were there. They couldn't do too much for him, but they did make him some herbal tea, which slightly eased his pain and wrapped his chest to keep his damaged ribs from moving so much. He was glad when they were done, and they let him know that there was little more they could do. They would rewrap him every day or so and keep an eye on things, but he should recover well and fairly quickly. He spent that evening and that night with Mawaya. He wasn't able to help her get around their chambers as he usually did, so they had a servant help her undress and get to bed. There they lay, mostly just quietly enjoying each other's warmth and occasionally murmuring something to the other. How upset was Callus about her guard dying? Mawaya asked him. It's not clear to me. She wasn't visibly upset. She was hurt, and so pretty quiet on our way back, even once in the wagon. Why, do you think they were lovers or something? Mawaya gave him a joking smack on his thigh. One doesn't have to be lovers with someone to care if they die. True, he admitted. But I've never seen someone from off our island who was royal and did care about their servants. Mawaya was silent at that. After a long while more, Nasramin asked her, Despite those walls she's putting up, have you gotten a sense of what she really wants? No, love, she replied, whispering it into his ear. But she is powerful and careful. I tend to think of her like a very dangerous snake. If you leave her alone, she leaves you alone. If you step on her or threaten her nest, she will strike. Let us hope she never suspects us of either, he murmured back to her. The days crawled by as Nasramin healed. The few days after the storm were the worst, and his ribs often ached so much he had difficulty sleeping. Sometimes he had the healers prepare him their special teas. Other times he simply had some wine. Their collective children continued to acquaint themselves, though Asasi, as before, kept it to a minimum. Nasramin and Mawaya were both glad that their children were keeping up their end of the diplomacy. Though, as Mawaya remarked, it seems that Theodora is easy to get along with. Our children don't need much pushing to spend time with her. 3 weeks after the storm, about when Nasramin was starting to feel better, except when he moved too quickly, Mercili came with some news. One of my spies from Thebes has returned, he said. Unfortunately, even now, this means he had started back to me before I had sent requests out asking for information specifically about steel. Despite this, he has some information on it. It turns out Thebes barely held off an attack. It looked bad, and Callus and Theodora were sent away just before. Who attacked them? The Assyrians. Really? They're a bit far abroad. It seems they attacked not precisely to conquer, as they are too far from their borders to hold Thebes, but instead to pillage and take revenge for Thebes offering trade and some aid to one of their enemies. They sent a good-sized fleet, though it was mostly ships made to carry soldiers, not wage war on the sea. Callis and Theodora were smuggled away just before the siege began. Thebes has been improving its defenses, as we've discussed over the last few years. They held. It was clear, however, that wherever they had fought, the Assyrian weapons and armor were superior. It turns out they're all made of iron now. Something doesn't add up, Nasramin said. Callis came with iron weapons and armor to give us. How can that be if they hadn't fought the Assyrians yet? A story went through Thebes, which I think explains all. Before their siege, the Assyrians decided to taunt the Thebans. They sent gifts so that they might have a fighting chance against them. The Theban king, whose military still relies on bronze, saw these gifts, and that night the queen and her daughter were smuggled out. Whether they had already planned their giving of the Assyrian iron to you, or Callis came up with that on the way here, I have no way of knowing. Nasramin considered this. With our long history of not taking on allies, Callis knew that just giving us the gifts and saying, "We need your help," might not get our attention. She wanted to make a splash. Well, she certainly did that. And I think we finally have our answer. She did not mean to threaten us, not really. She wanted us to take notice. What is the current state of Thebes? Their victory was hard won. They made the Assyrians pay for breaching the walls, but in the end they were breached, and some areas of the city attacked. They fought like heroes, my spy says, and he was there fighting alongside them. The Assyrians were eventually repulsed. The dead are in the thousands, though it could have been far worse. The Assyrians lost at least as many, and all of their losses are military. They escaped in their ships. They did not escape with much plunder. Will they return to Thebes after they have regained their strength? Possibly. It is the sort of thing that Thebes will have to account for. Though if I were a betting man, which I am not, I would say that it is unlikely. They made their statement, and they paid rather heavily to do so. They were not so badly beaten that they will have to respond out of pride. An empire like theirs has many enemies, many demands on their military. I would think it far more likely that some more pressing concern will arise, and their argument with Thebes will be forgotten. Still, Thebes will want allies, and it sounds like they had none in that fight. None that could stand against Assyria, no. Though as word of their bravery and their victory spreads, they may find their friends gain backbones. Nasramin considered this and what to do about it, and then realized he was missing something important. Mersili? Did your men come on a Theban ship? Will Callis know her city survived? And that's the end of the story for this week. Obviously, I'm having a lot of fun writing this. And if you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, CryptoBiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And thanks for listening. Words of Music copyright 2022 CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.